Jane Mansfield was the original queen of shock and awe publicity. With her platinum blonde hair, hourglass figure, and over-the-top antics, she chased headlines like they were Oscars. One of her most infamous stunts happened in 1957, when she deliberately accidentally lost her top in a crowded swimming pool full of paparazzi, photos that made front-page news around the world. But it didn't stop there. Mansfield made a career out of crashing high-profile Hollywood parties uninvited, always wearing something outrageous, or barely anything at all. Her most notorious move? Arriving at a Beverly Hills dinner party held for Sophia Loren, and flashing so much cleavage that Sophia's disapproving stare became more iconic than Mansfield's smile. Critics accused her of turning Hollywood glamour into tabloid trash. Studio execs grew tired of her antics, and over time, the roles dried up. What was meant to be dazzling and daring ended up looking desperate. Mansfield's legacy is a cautionary tale of how too much shock can backfire, and how a publicity stunt, no matter how bold, can overshadow real talent. Gloria Swanson was a silent film icon who struggled to keep her fame alive once the talkies took over. Desperate to reclaim the spotlight, Swanson orchestrated one of Hollywood's most misguided publicity stunts. In the early 1950s, after years out of the limelight, she staged an elaborate comeback, tour complete with gaudy costumes, dramatic monologues, and bizarre public appearances that felt more like performance art than a serious return to acting. The most infamous moment? She showed up uninvited at film screenings of Sunset Boulevard, ironically a film that mirrored her own fall from fame, and declared herself still big, it's the pictures that got small. While the line was iconic in the film, hearing Swanson repeat it off-screen felt unhinged to many. Critics and fans alike cringed at the spectacle, calling it sad rather than sensational. What was intended as a triumphant return ended up highlighting her disconnect from the evolving industry. Instead of reclaiming her throne, she became a living symbol of faded stardom, trying too hard to resurrect a past that Hollywood had already left behind. William Castle wasn't just a filmmaker. He was a full-blown showman who believed that gimmicks were just as important as storylines. But sometimes, his stunts went way over the top. In the late 1950s and early 60s, Castle became infamous for turning movie theaters into haunted carnivals. For his film Macabre, he gave every audience member a $1,000 life insurance policy in case they died of fright. During The Tingler, he rigged select theater seats with buzzers to shock viewers during key scenes. While these antics initially drew crowds, they quickly became more sideshow than cinema. His most notorious disaster came with 13 Ghosts, where he introduced Illusiono, a cardboard ghost viewer audiences had to wear to see the spirits on screen. It was confusing, cheaply made, and totally ineffective. Critics laughed, and viewers felt scammed. Though Castle's flair for publicity was undeniable, his obsession with gimmicks ultimately overshadowed his films. What began as fun and inventive turned into desperate ploys that damaged his credibility. He became a master of hype, but not always of substance, proof that even the cleverest stunts can become the butt of the joke. Joan Crawford was no stranger to reinvention, but some of her publicity stunts in the later years of her career veered into bizarre and desperate territory. As her Hollywood star began to dim, Crawford went to great lengths to stay relevant, sometimes embarrassingly so. One of her worst stunts came in the 1960s, when she launched an over-the-top, self-managed PR campaign to support the horror film Straight Jacket. She attended screenings dressed in a blood-splattered axe murderer costume, complete with dramatic makeup and chilling stares. What was meant to be spine-tingling came across as comically theatrical, drawing more ridicule than respect. But she didn't stop there. Crawford took to visiting theaters unannounced, posing with cardboard axes and signing autographs like a B-movie villain. Audiences were bewildered, and critics labeled her behavior as undignified for a star of her stature. Rather than enhancing the film's box office, the stunt cast a sad spotlight on a once glamorous icon clinging to relevance. Crawford's legacy as a formidable screen legend remains, but so does the memory of her bloody publicity spiral that felt more like a cry for attention than a savvy marketing move. Errol Flynn was the quintessential swashbuckling heartthrob of Golden Age Hollywood, but his off-screen antics often overshadowed his on-screen heroics. As his star began to fade in the late 1940s, Flynn turned to increasingly scandalous publicity stunts to stay in the headlines. One of his worst came when he faked interest in running for public office, announcing his candidacy for a congressional seat. The media frenzy was immediate, but it was soon revealed to be nothing more than a poorly planned PR stunt, with Flynn admitting he had no actual political intentions or platform. Critics blasted him for making a mockery of public service, and fans were left puzzled by the absurdity. Even worse, his team leaked rumors about an unauthorized tell-all autobiography to stir controversy, only for Flynn to awkwardly deny involvement while secretly profiting from it. These moves didn't boost his career, they made him a tabloid joke. Once celebrated as a daring adventurer, Flynn's desperate stunts turned him into a punchline. His legacy became a cautionary tale. When fame is fading, reckless gimmicks might grab attention, but rarely the kind you want. Marlene Dietrich was known for her magnetic screen presence and androgynous glamour, but even icons sometimes slip up when chasing the spotlight. In an effort to reignite interest in her fading film career during the 1950s, Dietrich orchestrated a highly publicized return to the stage tour, claiming it would be the most extravagant live performance ever seen. The buildup was massive. Press releases promised costumes worth a fortune, revolutionary lighting effects, and emotional vulnerability like never before. But when the curtains finally opened, audiences were met with a heavily stylized, distant performance that felt cold and mechanical. Critics called it an overhyped fashion show more than a concert, and Dietrich's refusal to engage with her audience emotionally left fans disappointed. Adding to the stunt's awkwardness, she faked fainting spells backstage to generate tabloid buzz, only for insiders to reveal the drama was staged. Rather than reviving her screen allure, Dietrich's calculated spectacle was seen as a desperate attempt to relive her heyday. The mystery she once wielded so masterfully began to look manufactured, proof that even elegance can't rescue a stunt gone stale. Ramon Novarro, the silent screen idol best known for Ben-Hur, 1925, saw his fame fade rapidly with the arrival of sound. Desperate to maintain relevance, his publicity team crafted one of the most awkward and ultimately harmful stunts in Golden Age Hollywood. They attempted to rebrand Novarro as a heterosexual heartthrob by spreading rumors of whirlwind romances with leading ladies. Despite the fact that Novarro was secretly gay, a reality he was forced to suppress due to the industry's homophobia. The most cringeworthy stunt came when he was photographed spontaneously kissing an actress outside a premiere, with newspapers calling it the romance of the year. Insiders knew it was staged, and the forced public image created emotional turmoil for Novarro, who felt trapped in a false persona. Worse, it didn't even work. Audiences sensed the insincerity, and his career continued to decline. Instead of protecting his star, the stunt erased his authenticity. In the end, Novarro's legacy was tarnished not just by fading fame, but by a calculated, exploitative campaign that turned his personal truth into a marketing lie. Mae West built her career on scandal, wit, and unapologetic sensuality, but not every publicity stunt landed the way she intended. In the 1950s, long past her cinematic prime, West launched a bizarre comeback attempt by surrounding herself with an entourage of muscular young men dubbed the Mae West Review. She paraded them around public events like accessories, referring to them as her bodyguards and love slaves. What she hoped would be seen as playful and provocative came across as desperate and out of touch. Critics mocked the spectacle, calling it cartoonish and uncomfortable rather than empowering. But her worst stunt came with the release of her 1970 film Myra Breenidge. Though she played only a minor role, West aggressively promoted the film as her grand return to Hollywood glory, insisting on singing numbers, lavish interviews, and photo ops that clashed jarringly with the film's chaotic, controversial content. The movie bombed, and West's antics became part of the punchline. Her attempt to control her image backfired, making her seem more like a relic clinging to shock value than the trailblazer she once was. Tula Bankhead was famous for her bold personality and larger-than-life presence, but some of her publicity stunts crossed the line from captivating to downright chaotic. Known for her wild parties and sharp wit, Bankhead once orchestrated a stunt during a film premiere where she showed up intoxicated and deliberately heckled the audience from the front row. The scene was meant to be rebellious and headline-grabbing, but instead it alienated studio executives and fellow actors. Worse still, she once publicly announced a fake engagement to a famous actor to stir gossip and press attention. When the truth came out, the stunt backfired badly, making her look insincere and desperate for relevance. Bankhead's unpredictable antics eventually overshadowed her undeniable talent, turning her into more of a tabloid fixture than a respected actress. Though her magnetic charm kept fans intrigued, her reckless publicity moves often damaged her reputation in Hollywood circles. Tallulah's story is a cautionary example of how outrageous stunts can quickly spiral out of control, leaving a legacy muddled between brilliance and chaos. Robert Mitchum was known for his tough guy roles and cool, effortless charm, but his real-life publicity stunts sometimes landed him in hot water. One of his most infamous blunders happened in 1948 when he was arrested on drug possession charges, an event that, instead of ruining his career, he tried to spin into a rebellious badge of honor. Mitchum's team capitalized on the scandal by feeding stories that painted him as the ultimate bad boy of Hollywood, a daring figure who lived by his own rules. While this stunt gained attention, it also tarnished his image among more conservative fans and studio heads. Mitchum didn't stop there. He later exaggerated tales of wild parties, brushes with the law, and off-screen romances in interviews, pushing his outlaw persona to the extreme. Though it kept him talked about, the stunt blurred the line between reality and myth, leading some to question his authenticity. Mitchum's attempts to court controversy were a double-edged sword. While they added mystique, they also risked overshadowing his undeniable talent and contributions to classic cinema. Jean Harlow was one of Hollywood's brightest stars during the 1930s, but even her glamorous image was not immune to questionable publicity stunts. As her fame skyrocketed, her studio orchestrated several sensational but poorly judged stunts to keep her name buzzing. One notorious example was when the studio leaked false rumors about her secret romances and wild parties to tabloids, painting her as a scandalous bad girl. While this helped generate headlines, it also stirred gossip that damaged her reputation among more conservative fans and industry insiders. Another stunt involved a staged kidnapping incident where Harlow was supposedly taken by fans, an event that quickly spiraled out of control and confused the public. Though she was beloved for her charm and comedic talent, these reckless publicity moves made her personal life fodder for gossip rather than admiration. Sadly, Harlow's tragic early death at 26 only intensified the myth surrounding her, but the publicity stunts remind us how studios sometimes exploited stars' images at great personal cost. Bela Lugosi, forever immortalized as Dracula, struggled with typecasting and a fading career in later years. In a desperate bid to revive his fame, Lugosi agreed to several publicity stunts that backfired spectacularly. One of the worst involved a staged vampire appearance at a Hollywood party, where he arrived in full Dracula costume, complete with fake blood and dramatic effects. While intended to thrill fans and remind the industry of his iconic status, the stunt instead made him look like a caricature of his former self. Worse still, Lugosi participated in cheap horror films that used his Dracula persona in increasingly ridiculous ways. Promoters marketed these films with gimmicky posters and headlines that cheapened his legacy. His struggles with addiction and personal decline became tabloid fodder, fueled by stunts orchestrated to keep him in the public eye at any cost. Though beloved by horror fans, these publicity moves reduced Lugosi from a respected actor to a tragic figure trapped by the very role that made him famous. A cautionary tale about the dangers of relying on gimmicks when the spotlight starts to fade.